Let's get the other side of the divide now. Mr. Festus Keyamo has since joined us from our Abuja studio. He was the spokesperson of the APC Buhari Presidential Campaign Organization in the 2019 election. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you so much, Mr. Keyamo, for joining us. Are you disappointed in the electoral and the political system in Nigeria when the EU came forward to say the leading parties, including your own party, are involved in electoral violence, leading into what we saw about 150 people killed? Are you disappointed in that kind of scenario playing out, mentioning your party?
Of course, I am disappointed. We are disappointed. But let me clear one or two misconceptions first. All the newspapers today got it wrong. I saw all their headlines saying that the EU, the European Union, has brought out a verdict on the elections in Nigeria. The European Union Election Observation Mission is not the European Union or the institutions of the European Union. If you look at the report itself, the footnotes at the table of contents, they made it very clear there at the footnotes of the table of contents that this report is not in any way linked to the institutions of the European Union, and it's not the official position of the European Union. So it is the Election Observation Mission that is an independent body sent to Nigeria. So people should stop saying that the European Union has issued a verdict on the elections in Nigeria. Secondly, the report itself is a mixed grill. It's a mixed grill of some positives and also some negatives. The positives have been downplayed in all the commentaries on orthodox television, media, and of course the online media. They have downplayed all the positives. There are positives in that report. The positives are that there were some improvements from the 2015 elections compared to the 2019 elections. The observation mission said, of course, that the recommendations they made in 2015, that some of those recommendations were implemented in the 2019 elections. They also praised some of the process. For example, they said the process of the counting of the votes was very transparent, and that it was counted in open, and everybody saw that the results were counted. And they also said that the process leading up to the election, which was the campaigns, canvassing for votes and other, were done in a very, very intense but free atmosphere. Nobody was intimidated. No, the opposition was not intimidated in any way. They were able to canvass for their votes. That these were very positive signs in the elections. Now, what are the downsides? Just the violence. The violence, of course, they indicted both leading parties. And that is what the previous speaker was not frank about. He did not show candor about that. They indicted both parties, and I want to say that we, of course, we are not proud of that. And of course, as a party, we will not encourage and approve of such conduct. But let me say that even the president alone was nominated at our primaries with about 14 million votes. That's to tell you the huge number of supporters that the party has across the country. We cannot account for the conduct of each and every, of the 14 million members we have. But I can assure you that the party as a corporate entity, cannot endorse any of such conduct. Don't forget, I want Nigerians to remember that just before the elections, it was the president that was pushing for a non-violent election and warning that nobody should snatch ballot boxes, that whoever snatched any ballot box, will pay for it with his life. So we were pushing for a transparent process. Guess who complained? It was the opposition, the main opposition that complained about that.
Well, let me quickly ask you. The EU indicted or picked hole in the transmission of results, which a lot of you will agree with me, that's where the problem of rigging lies. That's where the issue of rigging lies. Does that not put a red mark on your victory at the polls? Because the opposition is saying that's where you rigged the election.
No, you are not right. Read the report very well. And it appears that the PDP has not read that report before they came out and started huffing and puffing. The report did not say that the transmission of the results were not transparent. They said it was a collation process. And then the EU did not go ahead to explain what they meant by the collation process. Because if you understand what is in the Electoral Act, it says clearly that results we collected from the ward to the local government to the, and on and on, to the unit, from the unit to the ward, to the local government, to the state, and then, of course, the National Collation Center, where I was at that time. Now, the EU still confirmed in their report that they discovered that for each polling unit, the counting process was very transparent. And after counting of the votes in each of the units, you remember that this from ECATA, they were pasted clearly on the signboard or the wall for everybody to see. And everybody took snapshots of this from ECATAs across the country. So there was no manipulation of that process. That was where the process actually started.
Mr. Keyamo, sorry if I'm about in. You're talking about, no, just a moment. Let me push this to you. You just a moment, Mr. Keyamo, and let me put this question to you. The EU pointed out there were shortcomings regarding the use of card readers.
No, the EU said that there was an improvement in the sense that INEC insisted this time on the strict use of card readers. In other words, there was an improvement from the 2015 scenario to the 2019 scenario. That's why you had so many reruns, because they didn't allow the incident forms. INEC said, if you don't use the card reader, sorry, we'll go back and do the elections again. So that was what happened. And the EU confirmed that there was an improvement in that area. Of course, it was not 100%. Like I said before, the EU, let us not get overexcited by the EU report. We understand and appreciate their concern about the growth of our democracy, and we welcome them. They've been here since 1999 at every elections. But let us not get overexcited that this is the verdict we have all been waiting for. This is just one of several observers that came to Nigeria at EU. There were so many regional observers, local observers, continental observers, there were so many world bodies. And after that, all of these verdicts came in. All of them said one thing, that of course there were pockets of violence and anomalies here and there, but that the entire result reflected the wishes of Nigerians. That, of course, is what all the reports said.
Mr. Keyamo, this is one thing that you have not talked about or not reacted to.
The UK, the US, China congratulates Nigeria, the world congratulates Nigeria. The only party complaining is the party that lost. And that is how disingenuous they can be. The only party complaining about this election in the world is only the party that lost. And they will come and start shouting danger to democracy, when they are the ones that constitute danger to democracy.
Mr. Keyamo, speak to this.
Want to accept that they were beaten fair and square. Look, it was the same process.
Mr. Keyamo, just hold on. If I may push this to you so that we can have a conversation.
Transparent that they are saying that made us lose 5 states.
Mr. Keyamo, if I may put this to you, speak to this. Just a moment. Just a moment, Mr. Keyamo, if I may put this question so that we can have the conversation. Speak to this. They did mention the suspension of the former CJN by the president a few weeks before the election, which was seen to lack due process. They also made mention of harassment of journalists. They also talked about intimidation of INEC officials in 20 states. They also mentioned of the abuse of incumbency at federal and state levels. These are some of these issues. Talk to this if you can react to this. This also indicts your party.
So you can see that the abuse at the federal and state level, which they don't want to own up to, those things cancel themselves out. They said at the state level, there was abuse of state institutions. And they are talking of both leading parties. They don't want to accept that.
But did you accept on your own? Are you accepting that the power of incumbency was used and abuse of power of incumbency?
It indicts the opposition more than the ruling party.
Okay. Mr. Keyamo, you've not talked about the issue of the suspension of the CJN, the intimidation of INEC officials, the abuse of incumbency. It affects your own party. Does that also put a question mark on the victory?
You see, I met the EU. Can I just say this? I met the EU delegation because we were meeting almost weekly. They were coming to my office, and they carried us along in all they were trying to inquire. But in some of these instances, they didn't carry us along. For example, I told them that in matters in court, they should not rush to a conclusion. That is what I told them. So in matters of the CGN and all that, I told them that these were judicial matters, that they should allow the judicial process take its course, and that they should not make a definite comment on those issues at that time because these matters were in court. But they rushed to make conclusions on them. I'm not saying there was right or wrong, but they were rushing to make conclusions. And that is where the EU was wrong. And that's why I said we should not get overexcited by the EU report. Because the mistake we make in Africa is that when we see US, EU, UK to any report to say God has spoken.
All right, Mr. Keyamo, before we go, I may take your views quickly.
They make mistakes in many instances.
All right. Mr. Keyamo, let me get your view, and I'd like you to do it maybe in 60 seconds. The next level agenda that you have promised Nigerians in the campaign, a lot of Nigerians say they don't know what is in it. They cannot relate with it. You've talked about it in details. But how can Nigerians trust your government going into these 4 years? Some of the things that the president has said, how can they trust your party and your government in these next 4 years? Just in 60 seconds, if you can answer, please.
Well, I wish they can get hold of the document, the next level document, because if I want to discuss the next level document, it's going to take me another 2 hours here. Luckily, I was in the room where the whole thing was conceptualized, the whole concept of the next level, and all the projections. Luckily, I was part of it in that room. And I will tell you that if we start it today, it won't end today. We have next level in education, and I'll just give you snippets. 2 next level in education is that we want to refurbish 10,000 schools per year. We want to retrain teachers at all levels, at respect of education. We also have the Empower Medics, where doctors will be empowered and paid double to go to rural areas to take care of rural areas. Then, of course, in terms of the economic recovery and growth,
we must leave it at that. You had said it that if you go into next level, it will take another 2 hours. But I hope that your party in the coming days will want to educate Nigerians on what the next level is all about so that they can be carried on with the plans of government. Thank you so much, Mr. Keyamo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and the former spokesperson of the APC and Buhari campaign organization. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. Just before we go, everyone. President Buhari, I perhaps mentioned your name more than anything or other person or thing on this show, and that's because you are Nigeria's president. You promised Nigerians good life. Let me quickly remind you of the paragraphs, one of the paragraphs of your Democracy Day speech. You said, and I quote, "The principal thrust of this new administration is to consolidate on the achievements of the last 4 years, correct the lapses inevitable in all human endeavors, and tackle the new challenges the country is faced with, and chart a bold plan for transforming Nigeria." End of quote. That statement is deep. It's as if you are asking Nigerians to trust you. Yes, you are asking them because that's what you said at the post. I think a lot of Nigerians will take a look at what most of them will have. And some of them have told me, your critics have criticized you of forming your cabinet late in the first time. You say you might like to do things steadily, but on this one, Nigerians might be impatient. They want you to act fast. If you form your cabinet, Nigerians also say that you need to fix security. If you consider state police as a way out, act fast on it. Economy is another one, and Nigerians want to feed, and how they feed is very critical to them. Millions of youth are jobless. Jobs are important, Mr. President. I'm just a journalist. The echoing what many Nigerians tell me, some of them say they trust you. Well, and they will be holding you to your words in the coming days. I wish you good luck in your second term. Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimbaloye. Enjoy the rest of your evening.